WNBA just keeps shooting itself in the foot here. Wherever there's racism in society, apparently we should check the WNBA first. We live in a world where you can go on social media and you can allege anything. I wish that the WNBA could get out of its own way. Is this person racist or is that person racist? And why are all the racists apparently going to WNBA games anyway?
And now for a man who has a Gallagher machine in his living room, it's Ricky Cobb.
Oh yeah, and welcome, you sweet bastards. It is a Wednesday morning in Chicago. I'm Ricky Cobb, and this is the Ricky Cobb Show. Let's begin in the WNBA. The WNBA and the search for racism, essentially, that is always going on in this league. I don't know. It's like wherever there's racism in society, apparently we should check the WNBA first because that's where it allegedly is. The league issuing a statement. As we know, there were allegations on social media from the season opener in Indianapolis between Angel Reese and the Chicago Sky and Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever. And you may remember there was a dust-up during that game. The hard foul looked like a clean foul, a basketball play. Angel Reese hopped up. She was ready to fight. Emotions ran high, as they so often do when those two ladies are on the same court. And then after the game, we heard allegations in social media that there had been racist comments directed at Angel
So everything
Reese
in a split, Molly.
during the game. The league issued a statement at the time that they were going to investigate the matter, and now they are speaking out saying that they can't substantiate that anything occurred. You can see this official statement released by the NBA just yesterday. The WNBA says, "We have investigated the report of racist fan behavior in the vicinity of the court during the May 17th, 2025 Chicago Sky Indiana Fever game. Based on information gathered to date, including from relevant fans, team, and arena staff, as well as audio and video review of the game, we have not substantiated it. The WNBA is committed to fostering a safe, inclusive environment for everyone and will continue to be vigilant in enforcing our fan code of conduct." So did anything happen? Look, you get 20,000 people in one building, and I don't know what any individual person is capable of. You know that there have to be a handful of idiots just from living in our society and looking around. What do you think? 5-10% of human beings are just irredeemable fucking idiots? Which would mean if you get 20,000 human beings together, you're going to have at least a few hundred idiots in that crowd. I might be being generous for those of us that are a little bit cynical in our middle age about the overall cognitive functioning level of our fellow man. But I don't think that some of us are surprised. I didn't expect it to be substantiated. Did you? And if they had found evidence of it, absolutely, you should ban any fan or fans who are engaging in that type of conduct from the arena. There shouldn't be any tolerance for this type of behavior in 2025. But on the other hand, we live in a world where you can go on social media and you can allege anything. And just because somebody says something doesn't mean that it's true. And so it becomes one of these things where the Indiana Fever's fan base has been called into question here. Because once the allegations happen, and you know how this works in modern society, once allegations of any kind happen against anyone under any circumstances, there is going to be a portion of society that just believes that. And they're not going to care about the retraction. They're not going to care about the follow-up statement. And this wasn't a retraction, but it was simply a follow-up saying we did our due diligence, and guess what? We can't find any evidence that this alleged behavior occurred. But how many people are even paying attention to this or even going to see this? How many of the people who heard the original story that, hey, Indiana Fever fans, we heard they did some pretty bad stuff, how many of those people are going to read this and be satisfied by it, even if they do read it? The WNBA just keeps shooting itself in the foot here, if you ask me. Some are saying that the WNBA needs to look into Brittney Griner. You probably have seen the footage. Brittney Griner on the bench, and suddenly everybody's a fucking lip reader now. And I'm not even going to go into what she was alleged to have said, because guess what? I'm not going to come on this show and bullshit you and pretend that I'm a great lip reader. I know what it may have looked like. I can see where people are getting that. But have you ever seen bad lip reading on YouTube? Have you ever seen any of the funny videos that circulate with lip reading? There are things that look like they could be something, and the person has said something else entirely. So I'm not going to sit here and impugn Brittney Griner on this show when I have no fucking idea what she did or didn't say. But that's being analyzed like the fucking Zapruder film, people alleging that Brittney Griner said something that could have possibly been racially inflammatory directed towards a referee. But who the fuck knows? She might have said something else. So I'm not going to come on this show and tell you that I know what Brittney Griner did or didn't say. And the truth of the matter is, what is the league supposed to do about it? People are saying, well, the league should do something about it. Why don't they say, well, what do you think Brittney Griner is going to admit that if she did say it? Not fucking likely. And just the fact that we're here having this conversation now where Brittney Griner says something on the bench, none of us hear it, but now suddenly, we're not lip readers, but we stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night, and so suddenly everybody knows what Brittney Griner said. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and tell you that I know what she said. I'm not that talented. I do know that I wish that the WNBA could get out of its own fucking way, because we don't see this in the NBA. Look, I'm rooting for the WNBA. As much as I may make light of certain things and poke a little fun at it, I hope the league succeeds. I've got 5 daughters. I've got my own WNBA starting lineup. I might have the Ricky Cobb expansion team one day. It's in my own best interest to be in favor of the WNBA. I'm pulling for this league.
Yeah,
but man, they make it hard. Because you go and you watch the NBA, you don't deal with this shit. You're talking about the games. When we talk about the NBA on this program, we're talking about, man, did you see the Pacers and the Knicks last night? And we'll get to that in just a moment. We're talking about, man, did you see Anthony Edwards come up a little bit short in Game 4 against the Thunder? We're talking about hoops. And yeah, I can sit here and I can complain until I'm blue in the face about how there's too many three-pointers and the game is not as beautiful as it was when Larry Bird and Magic Johnson were engaging in their epic rivalry throughout the decade of the 1980s. And it's not as good as it was in the 1990s when we were watching Michael Jordan establish a dynasty in Chicago. But at least we're talking about the game. I would much rather be talking about the proliferation of three-pointers than is this person racist or is that person racist? And why are all the racists apparently going to WNBA games anyway? That's got to be a crowd, I would suspect, that probably, if anything, is probably less racist than general society. Honestly, who's going to these games? Is it soccer moms just loading their daughters into minivans and heading out to the Indiana Fever game where they can't wait to get a little hate off their chest? I kind of doubt it, while leaving room for the possibility that there are idiots out there in the world who do idiotic things, and they should be called out for it when we have evidence. But maybe we need something more than just allegations on social media that are coming from God knows where before we suddenly go into high alert and give credence, because there are certainly some people who believe that these claims, regardless of the fact that the league could not find basis in reality for what was alleged, there are people who are going to hear that and they are going to believe that the Indiana Fever fan base and Caitlin Clark's fans are racist. And that's unfortunate. It would be nice if we could get back to talking about basketball, which is allegedly what the league is supposed to be serving up for us. Knicks Pacers last night, Tyrese Halliburton, what a coming out this 2025 NBA playoffs has been for Tyrese Halliburton. The Pacers now 1 game away after a big win last night, the first home game win in this Eastern Conference Finals. Finally, the Pacers get one in their own building. They now lead 3-1, and they've got the Knicks on the ropes. Halliburton with 32 points, 15 assists, 12 rebounds, and perhaps most impressively, no turnovers in the game. They say that is the first playoff game of 30 points, 15 assists, 10 rebounds or more, and no turnovers since they began tracking such things back in 1900 shit. I don't know. I think it was actually the late 1970s. So the point is, Halliburton turning up huge when Indiana needs him, and now the Pacers are on the precipice of the finals. Spike Lee moved past the precipice of thinking about wearing a stupid hat last night, and he just wore that motherfucker. Take a look at Spike Lee here. What do we have going on? I was told that Spike Lee was wearing a dumb hat last night, and so I go to check it out. I'm still trying to figure out, is he in the French Foreign Legion? Is he a Shriner? Did somebody sit on his hat on the way to the game? What do we exactly have going on here with this cap? I don't know. I have settled on the fact that I think that it's more Shriner vibes than anything. Can we get Spike one of those little funny cars? Let him drive it around. There we go. Here comes Spike Lee, everybody. Hey. Is that my own footage, Tim?
My footage. Yeah, my footage. July 4th.
That's your footage.
Last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's very good. I have some Shriner footage somewhere myself because there's nothing that says get your phone out and start filming like a bunch of elderly men zipping around in tiny cars and funny hats.
Driving in formation.
Tim? We obviously... driving in formation. We obviously share the same good taste in capturing the moments of our lives. Pat McAfee was in the building last night, not wearing a funny hat. And look, Pat McAfee, he's got to be is he Indianapolis's favorite son? Perhaps he is. Listen to this. Pat McAfee throwing some shade at Knicks celebrity fans who were in the house just last night in Indianapolis.
Indianapolis, Indiana. We got some big wigs from the big city in the building. Spike Lee is here. Ben Stiller is here. Timothy Chalamet is here. Let's send these sons of bitches back to New York with the
McAfee, I like you, but you watch what you say about Timothy Chalamet. That kid is a national treasure. Unbelievable performance as Bob Dylan, fellas. And my daughters are impressed by the fact that he's Willy Wonka, even more so. But good stuff from Pat McAfee there. Great atmosphere in the building. I wonder what Dr. James Naismith would think about it all. The man who set this all in motion. Although I had a guy on Super 70s last night who was adamant that Naismith didn't invent basketball. Apparently some other motherfucker invented it, and Naismith is somehow the father of basketball. But fuck that. I'm saying he invented it, goddammit. It's the Naismith Award. I just invented basketball, motherfuckers. You got about 100 years to enjoy this before it gets completely fucked up. Those are the words, presumably, of Dr. James Naismith. You may not want to fact check that one. He had no idea that people were going to want to stand 25 feet away from the fucking peach basket. The whole idea was to get in there and get a high percentage shot. Basketball is now being held hostage by a gimmick. As Bob Ryan said when he came on the program some months ago, this goes back to the dude who created the Harlem Globetrotters. Here's a gimmick. 3-point shot. Now it rules everything. Basketball, and look, I know, get off my lawn, all of that shit. But dude, it was never meant where 40 or 50% of the shots that go up were meant to be far away. The whole idea was to work it around and get a high percentage shot. Now we got guys pulling up and taking threes when they're on their way to uncontested layups. Tyler Harrow, I'm looking at you. If you enjoy this kind of content, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. YouTube viewers, by God, get on board. Hop in. You got shotgun on this little joyride that we take every day. And we love to see you sitting there in the front seat, ashing your cigarette out the window, having a real good goddamn time. And now let me bring into the program a man who needs to get the fuck into Chicago today. He joins me from Nashville, Tennessee. He is, of course, the international streaming star. I speak, of course, of Ronnie T-shirts. Ronnie, where do you want to begin? You've been listening attentively. What's on your mind this morning, my friend?
I just, you're talking about percentages of people that might be idiots and racists, and then you kind of touched on it a little bit later. But I just think that let's just pretend that 10% of our population are racist, right? Well, that's not going to carry over to a WNBA game in terms of 10% of the fans there are going to be racist. So, like you said, it's just not. That's not the crowd. Like the WNBA is not the crowd that's going to be racist. And on top of that, it makes no sense. I just looked at the Indiana Fever's roster, and the majority of their players are black, Ricky. So I can't imagine that a fan of the Fever is going to make racist comments when they've got players that it just all makes no sense to me. I think it's made up. And it is just like you said, man, it is getting old. I don't know anything about the WNBA, Ricky, in terms of like, I don't know who's good. I don't know who's got the best record. I don't know what players are doing what, because it seems like all we hear about is this off the court stuff. And it further makes me want nothing to do with being, watching it.
Look, Ron, I will say the thing that everybody needs to understand. Shouldn't even have to say it. There is no room in our society.
Of course not, Ricky.
Those types of things.
Of course not.
Now, with that being said, the narrative has become somehow that WNBA fans are the most racist motherfuckers since the people that Jackie Robinson had to deal with in 1947. It's like every racist has crawled out of the woodwork, and now it's just the WNBA in 2025, we are to believe, is, like Selma, Alabama in the early 1960s or something.
Right.
And it just doesn't pass the smell test.
No, it makes no sense.
And if these allegations were true, look, any individual allegation could turn out to be true about anything, because as we've established, there are idiots out there. But if it is really as bad as the narrative that some would have you believe, wouldn't we be getting some proof of it somewhere? But nada. Nothing comes up when they search for this, but they've already stained the league. I'm not going to lie. I'm really excited about this one. Every interview is a pleasure, and I've had so many big names on this show. Guys that I never would have imagined that I would have been able to have spoken with in a million years. But I got to tell you, this one is right at the top of the top for me, because the man I'm about to welcome to the program is really a broadcasting icon. I consider him to be the greatest of all time at ESPN. He is the GOAT of Bristol in my book. A finer broadcast journalist you will not find in sports or anywhere else. It is my great pleasure to welcome to the program one of my heroes, Bob Ley. Bob, at last we're face to face.
We have DM'd through the years. You know what I think about. You had the bet until my Twitter feed got corrupted, and I ran out, and everybody who helped me at Twitter got fired. So I can't. I'm in, I told you were the best feed on Twitter, and you could be having a crappy day in the middle of the newsroom, and one of your tweets would come by. That's good. Just a comfortable. You're a comfort food, you sweet bastard.
Well, Bob, thank you. Look, being called a sweet bastard by you, that is, I mean, we can put that on my tombstone. Here lies a sweet bastard, and if we can put Bob Ley down in the corner and attribute that to you, what more could I ask for? Bob, I mean, I've been such a fan for so long, going all the way back to the beginning when we got ESPN, when we got cable. And I can't remember if it was 81 or 82 in Horse Cave, Kentucky. ESPN, I was like 11, 12 years old, and sports were everything to me. And, I mean, there were days where, I mean, I would just leave the TV. The TV probably stayed on ESPN for 24, 48 hours at a time on many occasions.
I wasn't much older, by the way.
You weren't. In fact, do we have the tweet, Tim? Throw me the skee ball tweet if you guys have it here, because I do. Take a look at this. I don't know if you've ever seen this one or not, Bob. This is an old one. I said that Bob Ley celebrated his 12th birthday by anchoring Sports Center, and then broke a story about skee ball corruption at Chuck E. Cheese. Look at that baby-faced youngster there.
I was hired at 24, but I looked like I was 16. Skee ball. A lot of corruption. But, you know, as a kid who met his wife at the Jersey Shore, I grew up in North Jersey, but you go down the shore for your summers. Skee ball, man, that's where it's at. I got granddaughters who are good at it, rolling that ball up there. So it's you gotta know what you're doing with skee ball.
Yeah, you do. It's a staple of any Chuck E. Cheese visit. As a father of 5, I have spent more time in Chuck E. Cheese than I would care to admit. But you know, as a dad, you know, everybody's having fun, and then you get a few tokens for yourself and make your way over there. Bob, let's go back to the early days. You obviously started at ESPN in 79. As you said, you were, 24 years old and looked like your parents dropped you off.
I did have enough for my mom to anchor, though.
There you go. It's important to have that.
Exactly.
Look, let's go all the way back to the beginning, because every sports obsessed kid that ends up going into broadcasting journalism decides to cover sports as a career. There's a story there. When did you fall in love with sports? What made you fall in love with sports? And when did you know that it was something that you wanted to do as a vocation?
Well, I was asked this question on another podcast earlier this week, and this is the truth. I was 6. My uncle was an assistant director at ABC Sports, and this is 1961. And I have a distinct memory of standing in this rickety, hastily constructed press box at the Langhorne Speedway in Langhorne, Pennsylvania, watching this reporter anchor, who it wasn't McKay, but somebody from ABC, calling this event into a mic. And the event was a demolition derby where cars, back up. Wow. The last car running wins. And I was 6. And I said, this is like the whole buzz around this. Like, it stuck with me. And I would get a chance to see the industry from the inside through my Uncle Steve a number of times growing up. And by the time I got to, to high school, I was, student newspaper, this and that, working on I guess the statute of limitations has run out. It was an illegal pirate radio station broadcasting games and just running them back and playing them back. But yeah, and by the time I got to college at Seton Hall University, the only school I had applied to because of the radio station, I kind of knew what I wanted to do.
Bob, what do you think of the whole Caitlin Clark era as we're seeing it attempt to take off and flourish in the WNBA? We joke on the show a lot. We talk about the WNBA a lot more than I ever would have imagined before I heard that young lady's name, Caitlin Clark. And so much of what we cover, we're talking about off the court drama, allegations of this or that, or how does this person feel about that person? Do you think the WNBA is kind of fumbling this opportunity with the Golden Goose to this point? What do you make of it?
I think the more you talk about the WNBA, whatever the issue is, in their heart of hearts, they should be saying, thank you, Ricky Cobb. Because, just look at the value of the broadcast properties, the television ratings. The controversies are great. Just get my name right. That's the first rule of trying to break. What's the greatest challenge in this fire hose of content that's being pushed out digitally to every human on earth? You could sit in front of your laptop all day. I subscribe to so many newsletters and blogs. It pains me to delete some without reading them, but I got to go to sleep eventually. The point is to break through the clutter, to be the content that puts up its hand and says, pay attention to me. That's a tough thing to do. And I'm not saying that the WNBA is doing anything cynically, not at all. But my point is, if there is a bit of controversy, as the Brits would say, and it can be wrapped up with a logical explanation that doesn't get too ugly. And I was listening to what you guys were talking about earlier. That's not a bad thing necessarily. And I don't mean to sound cynical and that there's some plan to that. But we're talking about the WNBA. We're talking about Caitlin Clark. We're talking about Angel Reese and all of this stuff. We talked about Magic and Larry. How about Dr. J in a fist fight in the 80s? Who would have thunk the great gentleman of sports would be in there throwing haymakers? You can go to YouTube. So we'll look back on this in 10 years on YouTube, if YouTube exists in this form, and say, I remember those days we were wondering about the WNBA. And at that point, franchise values could be up to $1 billion. Who knows? Because that's the ultimate measure. Pardon me, Ricky. That's the ultimate measure of success in sports.
Right.
I was taught that by a former commissioner of the CBA, Jim Drucker. Franchise value, just like when we open the doors in the morning for share value, price per share, and franchise value. That's why find me a human being who has lost money owning a pro sports franchise in the last 20 years. You cannot.
And isn't that a powerful thought when we hear so much about how the sky is falling? You hear so much, NBA,
here's the sky falling. It's not falling on a pro sports owner, especially the ones who won the sperm lot, have owned the team for 100 years through the family. They're sitting on pure capital gain. Everyone's all angsting, and the Trump administration has proposed a change in the tax law that would cut in half the write-off they get on their intangible benefits over 15 years. I don't want to go into the weeds on tax policy. It's the last thing I'm sure you want to do. Point is, it's an unfavorable law for pro sports owners, which is interesting since the president is so tight with Jerry Jones and Bob Kraft. Weep not for anyone who owns, especially the NFL is lava. You cannot stop it. It's the greatest cultural force in this country. Name a bigger one.
No, I can't do it. I can't.
You can't. Not one religion, not one political party or philosophy. No, it's the NFL. And it unites everybody. It's the unifier around the Super Bowl campfire and when we watch the commercials. How perverse is that? How capitalistically lovable is that we gather by the tens and tens of millions to watch commercials together? Oh, it's a Madison Avenue dream.
It surely is. I wonder what the Doritos commercial is going to be this year.
Yeah.
A society waits with bated breath, Bob, to get that
news.
Brent
Musburger once said, "This is for all the Doritos."
So, a couple of things here. Pat McAfee. You mentioned Pat McAfee earlier. What do you make of the Pat McAfee era at ESPN, which is certainly a departure from what we saw for a long time over there?
Listen, I respect the hell out of what Pat's created and how he has taken this moment, this opportunity. This is what we preach to youngsters who have aspirations coming into the field. Created it your own platform, your own identity, your own brand, and break through the clutter. And you're the piece of content that screams, watch me. And Pat's done that. It's not an ESPN show. Yeah, but it is an ESPN show. No, it's not an ESPN show. It's licensed, but those nuances fall by the wayside. Listen, I respect what he's created and how it's been managed to a position of success and how it seems to be working well. It's not the way I would do a show. It's not the way I would report issues, but like Baskin Robbins makes a lot of different flavors. But that cut last night that he showed from the game, I just disappointed. There's a way to creatively taunt Ben Stiller and Spike Lee and whoever else is coming out from New York to the game without having to resort to, calling them SOBs. And I wonder if somebody in the league office picks up the phone today and talks to the Pacers and say, let's be careful who we give the mic to, or what words of advice we give to those we give a public address mic to. Is it necessary to go there? Look, I'm going to sound like I'm on my fainting couch in 1890. I get it. The F word has burst through. Politicians use it freely. It's on everywhere except over-the-air television now. I get it. But can we go through a pretense of having some decorum some places? Maybe.
You're no prude, Bob. You've been consuming my tweets for years. And I think what you're saying is, I think what you're saying is, it's true. Just because you can do something doesn't mean that you need to just do that thing over and over and over again. It's like lyrics to songs, right? God help me. I'm talking to Bob Ley about WAP. But remember the song WAP that we were all so concerned about for a while there?
My buddy Tom Cotter, the comedian, and you can find this on YouTube, took the lyrics from WAP up against Baby It's Cold Outside, that song from the 40s, which was getting a lot of revisionist and Me Too attention for being very paternalistic and from the patriarchy. And Tom Cotter does this back and forth between the lyrics. These are the lyrics that people were criticizing. These are the lyrics that are being celebrated by this current hit. And it's hilarious and illustrative and enlightening all at the same time. I would encourage you to find it because, I got four young granddaughters, and they're going to develop their own worldviews. Yeah. But I'm not going to be the one that says, "Hey, listen to that song." Somebody, they're going to have to encounter it themselves at some point, make their own decisions. But putting it in people's faces, that's tough.
Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I think that that's a distinction that some of us might be well advised to ponder a little bit more. Bob, when you look at the future of the industry, Tim was talking with me. I read the article that you sent over talking about AI, for instance. That was something that I was dealing with in my old profession as a college professor. Yeah. The whole cat and mouse game of it was just starting to happen, really my last year, where AI wasn't really a thing until suddenly it was a thing. And now it's really a thing, and it's getting better, it seems like, by the minute. And then you start considering, well, if this is where we are now with AI, and 3 years ago, it wasn't even on my radar. I was aware there was such a thing that existed, but now it's a part of my everyday life. I actually use AI on virtually an everyday basis for something or another. Then I start thinking, well, how good is it going to be 2, 3, 5 years from now? When you look at the industry, and maybe you could speak to AI a little bit in this as well, what concerns you and what do you think is going to be sort of the next level of challenges as we go forward and try to navigate this technological world that we find ourselves in?
Well, I got to tell you, I had this conversation with people. I had lunch last week with there's about 150 years of sports journalism experience around the same lunch table at this little place in Connecticut, where, by the way, the night before Joe Biden had just lunched, and we had the same server. And we're talking about this, and point I was making to my fellow former colleagues, to be in, you talk about, do you miss working in the newsroom? Do you miss OTL? I mean, I can't imagine the challenge that exists on the very basic level of verifying, is that a real soundbite? Is that tape real? Is that image real? I mean, for example, when Pope Leo was elected, and by the way, Pope Leo, his name is Bob. He was raised a Catholic, born in 1955, with a degree from a Big East school. Where did I go wrong? Right? He got the big chair. But I asked ChatGPT before we knew he was a White Sox fan, just for the hell of it, he said, referencing the Pope. ChatGPT, create me an image that shows the just elected Pope Leo throwing out the first pitch at a Cubs game. Took 2 minutes. It's freaking hilarious. Okay, ChatGPT, create an image for me showing Pope Leo in the bleachers at Wrigley sitting next to Ferris Bueller. Took 3 minutes. Beautiful pictures. Every day, every piece of video. I mean, you know, I doom scroll occasionally on Facebook. Stuff comes along. How do you verify this? How do you know the efficacy of every soundbite, of every piece of B-roll? It's tough. Now, and then, all right, the next slice of that story of AI, the impact. And I just saw something on Axios this morning, what some people are saying, what AI is going to do, the white-collar industry is going to wipe out entry-level jobs in the next 5 to 10 years and drive the unemployment rate in some industries up to double digits. I mean, logging tapes, cutting highlights, writing rudimentary copy, even some involved copy, all done by humans, all done by a lot of people in their first or second jobs in the industry. We may not need them in 3 years. And if I was running the company, you know, the humane thing would be to do, let's hit the brakes on hiring, because we're not going to hire somebody we're going to have to let go in 18 months because of AI necessarily. It's a challenge all the way around for those entering the industry, for those managing the industry, and for those that are hiding under the sheets, wondering whether it's going to mean the end of humanity if they get a hold of the nuclear codes. Not to go too deep on you, Ricky.
Well, there's a thought. I may need to get drunk.
I know.
After this episode, Bob. We could continue this over cocktails.
Over some PDRs,
later.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and Tim's in my ear. He wants to get your thoughts on Stephen A's flirtations with the White House. What do you make of it?
I consider Stephen a very good friend. He's done some huge solids for me over the years. I remember the first time I interviewed him back in 2003. It was 2003 when the entire Rush Limbaugh thing blew up at ESPN. And Stephen was still at the Inquirer, and we met that way over the bird, and we became colleagues and friends. And I got to believe, and I said this at another podcast this week, that when Stephen puts his head on his pillow at night and pulls the cover up, that he's kind of chuckling to himself as he goes off to dreamland. And God bless him, he's earned every single penny of that new contract. He's the hardest working person I know. He's got to think to himself, my God, what are they doing thinking I could be president? There's this long piece in the New York Times within the last 2 weeks. We're going to look back in 2 or 3 years at this period, the boomlet for Stephen A. Smith, and say, what were we smoking?
If you like what you saw on today's show, head over to outkick.com/newsletters and sign up for Ricky Cobb's Rewind. We're going to have great stuff coming to you every 2 weeks via email. It's absolutely free, and you can stay on top of everything that we're doing on the program.